All right, guys, welcome to episode 2 of Monk's Musings. I'm Monk. With me today, we have repeating guests, Adnoth 006, and Dire Fist. Thanks, guys, for
000.
thanks for coming on the show once again.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So today, our topic is going to be what got you into gaming. We're going to talk to chat a little bit about what got them into gaming. Shaken, not stirred. That's right.
You know it.
We're going to get into what got our guests and myself into gaming, what keeps us there. Questions like what would make us quit gaming, if there is any such event. We'll see, I guess. We always welcome chat's input as well, so y'all keep asking your questions anytime it comes to your mind. And yeah, first of all, how are y'all doing today?
I'm doing well. A little tired, but otherwise I'm good.
Yeah, but like we said, we have our coffees.
We do.
Everybody's got their pick-me-up this morning.
Yep. It's always nice to do stuff like this, hang out with friends during this COVID pandemic.
Yeah, we can go ahead and cover some current events for right now. Starting off with, I mean, everybody knows what's going on in the world, but it's seemed to get worse and then get worse.
Seem to drag on
and
forever.
then drag on and then get worse. And
Hey,
are...
drag on. You love dragons.
Hey, dragons.
I do. That was one of my prerequisites. I want to fly on them.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, there is a pandemic. It is happening. That's one of the reasons we get to do this is the pandemic, so try to look on the bright side, I guess.
Thanks, Corona.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Corona.
in case you're watching this on YouTube, it's 10:30 in the morning. All of us would normally be at work right now.
Yep. Wish it would done, John. Ha, got him. But yeah, I mean, latest news, last time I heard, they were trying to shut down the World Health Organization and all that crap. And
Who?
Yeah, exactly.
So
That's a great band, by the way.
The Who.
The Who.
Yeah. I don't know why we would want to shut them down.
I know.
I mean, especially there's like a pandemic. They bring joy with their music. Why would we want to get rid of that right now?
Yeah, it's a terrible idea. Terrible idea.
It is.
But yeah, other than that, I mean, everybody's just trying to get their stimulus checks in. Funny story? Go ahead, Orpheus. Take it away, man. We're waiting.
Now we're gonna wait for like 3 minutes.
Let's just all sit here.
We're just gonna
and
wait.
Not speak while we wait for him to write his whole story.
Slowly getting closer and closer to the.
So,
yeah.
Peter Capaldi played a doctor for the World Health Organization in World War Z. Wow.
Yeah, he did.
Oh.
He was a Who doctor. That's funny.
Oh, no.
That's a good one.
That's pretty funny.
That is pretty good. Pretty good. So, what's everybody playing right now? I know it's only been 2 days, but we've since we recorded the last one and we talked about it, but I'm assuming we've played some different games since then. I know Adnoth has.
Yeah, wait, how do you know I've played a different game?
Discord tells us.
I'm watching you.
Yeah.
I'm literally watching you.
But
right
yeah, last night I was feeling nostalgic and I wanted to be able to also sit and watch TV with my wife. So I grabbed the Switch and I pulled out Pokemon, whatever, the Pokemon Go, Pikachu, something. I don't know why
Let's
that
Go
game has such a
Pikachu?
long, weird name. Yeah, Let's Go. That's the other word
Yeah.
I was forgetting. But I played the remake of Red and Blue, and I was having a lot of fun with it. I mean, I've just slowly been playing it ever since it came out, and just another nice nostalgia bomb of playing that, just like I've been getting a nostalgia bomb from Final Fantasy VII Remake. So yeah, it was fun. But that was on my Switch, so I don't have Discord on there. How did Discord tell you guys that I was playing Pokemon?
No, I was
I just
actually
made that up.
referring to you playing Magic.
Oh, yes, that's
But-
true. I played the card game Magic the Gathering through Discord with Waiting Warrior on Tuesday night. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I tried to make a taquito yesterday because I wanted to live a little in the so I guess you could say that I played myself. But aside from that, I've also just played Human Fall Flat with you and Daisy with you, and that's been it because it's been 2 days.
Yep.
No, wait, but there was a big development on the Dire Fist side, something we talked about last time that was a problem, and you figured out what the problem was and fixed it.
What? Oh, with my mic?
No, your hard drive.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, yeah. So last episode we were talking about how Dyer doesn't have any room to download games in his hard drive, and every time he gets a new game, he has to delete another game and download it.
So we asked him how big it was. He looked at it and was like, "It's a terabyte." And he was saying he had 2 games on there. It was like Sims and the pirate game, Sea of Thieves. That was it. And he was like, "I'm full."
Yeah, so I got WinDearStat, which allows you to see exactly what it's a free program that allows you to see exactly what's taking up space on your hard drive with like just precision. And I took a look at it and I found out essentially after playing with it for a while that for some reason I could delete some things through Recycle Bin, which I've done a lot over the past 10 years of having this computer, but not all of the temporary files and other things were completely going through, and like some of them were still being held onto, but just sort of in. And so I figured this out and deleted and did a clean through of all of that, and all of a sudden I have, so 2/3 of my hard drive was made up of that, and so now I have a lot of space.
How much
He
exactly?
got rid of 700
700
gigabytes
gigs
of temporary files that were not being deleted from his computer.
Ridiculous. You texted me that, and I was like, I was appalled
I was too.
at the amount of junk files that you had in your computer.
Oh,
Yeah, I don't know how that happened.
Yeah,
But I know it was related to, so I played Skyrim for a lot, and I used to get a bunch of mods on there. Back before I really understood how to put mods on appropriately, I think I had a lot of like duplicate files and things that weren't stored in spaces that would have been ideal for me to find them again. And I think a lot of them was that it didn't by any means make up for all of those, but I think that was a large portion of them. It was a lot.
Well, yeah, and any kind of cached files,
games and play with us.
any kind of cached files that weren't being fully deleted
Right.
too, like
Yeah.
from games that you keep re-downloading and then deleting. Ridiculous, but
So that was fun.
yeah. So, and then like Dyer said, we played some Human Fall Flat yesterday and some Daisy, but Dyer kept being killed by spawn campers, and so we stopped playing Daisy for a little bit.
Griefing. We talked about that last time.
Yeah.
Not all grief is bad. There is such a thing as good grief.
Just ask Charlie Brown.
Ah, boo.
But yeah, so our topic today is what got us into gaming. Who would like to go first?
My dad, when I was growing up, I was like 4 or 5. My dad had an NES, and he played The Legend of Zelda a lot on it, because he's always really been fascinated and enjoyed video games. He's never been very good at them, but he's always liked the escapism of them. And so he got this, and I played with it for a while until eventually the console overheated or something happened and the entire thing just stopped working one day.
I was really hoping you were going to say caught on fire.
Yeah, internally. But but I that was my first memory of playing any sort of video game was that, and I really, really loved The Legend of Zelda from that point on. And so over time, when I got older, I got an N64. Like this is at the time where people were like getting Xboxes and everything, and I was just like, all right, N64, this is amazing. Um, and I played Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, and which by far is my favorite Zelda game of all time, Majora's Mask.
Majora's, yeah.
It's so good. But that's sort of as far as early life. That's what got me into it. But I've realized there's like a through line of the kinds of games I enjoy tend to be adventure games like that. Where I went to like even my time with World of Warcraft or Morrowind was a really big sort of stepping stone of me getting into more games with more sort of adult themes, I guess, but they were still RPGs that had a lot more complexity to them. But that was that's my earliest memory is doing that with the NES and really enjoying that. But just as an aside, because I think this is fascinating, my dad, he's 65 years old now. And like I said, he really enjoys games to the point that he's seen me, like he's come over and when we were just hanging out one day, I like played some Fallout New Vegas and he was just like watching and he was just enthralled with this game. He was like, wow, this is amazing. Like you can do whatever you want. And I did that with Skyrim at one point and he loves it. And the last 3 years that we've gone to sort of celebrate Thanksgiving with my family, he's consistently asked if we can play D&D because he really loves playing D&D now. And so I play it with him and at the time my 10-year-old nephew. So it's just me and this really young guy and this old guy. And I'm
It's awesome.
It's been a lot of fun.
Generations of D&D.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
and
we know what you need to do if your dad loves watching video games. Is introduce him to Twitch.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, and this definitely doesn't have to be limited to video
he plays
games.
Minecraft today too. Like he loves Minecraft.
That's cool.
Yeah.
He uses
Do you play Minecraft with him?
Whenever I'm not, no, because he's using my account. So whenever I'm not playing, that's what I should get him for his birthday. Whenever I'm not playing him, he's using my account. That's usually why I have long stints without it.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's a good idea for a birthday present. And yeah, this doesn't have to be limited to video games either. Like D&D is a type of gaming, Magic the Gathering,
A lot of people like
stuff
board
like
games.
that. Yeah, board games. You know, people have probably been playing board games longer than they've been playing video games for the most part, but
I know I have.
Yeah. So, what about you, David?
So for me, growing up, I think I've told you this before, but we had kind of like a family rule that we weren't allowed to play video games.
Rebellion is what your
Yeah.
your origin story.
Yeah, so
It's all out of spite. That's all.
Screw you, Dad. No. But so let's see. It wasn't we weren't allowed to play video games, but we weren't allowed to have video game consoles so that we could just play whenever. And it wasn't video games were evil or anything like that. It was just my dad had known people that had just like fallen in the deep end and basically, I mean, become the typical sit in their mom's basement kind of thing. And
So people like us now?
Absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
I'm not in my mom's basement. I'm in my own house.
I'm in my own basement.
Anyway, and basically became like nothing, and it just ruined their lives. And so he didn't want that for us. And so it wasn't we weren't allowed to play video games. It's we weren't allowed to like own them ourselves so that we could play them all the time. So it made sense. I didn't like it as a kid, obviously. And I still don't actually agree with the way that they went about it. I feel like because they did. I mean, they sort of made me not sort of. They did. They made me want to rebel against it and be like, no, I'm going to play video games.
Right.
But I feel like there's a more medium way of going at it and teaching responsible video game playing that will set people up for success. But anyway, so when I was around the age of 10, I think, was 10 or 11, something like that, was when the Game Boy Advanced came out. And finally, after years of wearing them down, mom and dad decided that there are three of us kids. I was the oldest. That they would buy us a Game Boy Advanced, and we would all three share it and play games. And so one of the first things that we played was Pokemon, and there was a TV show and book series and manga from back in the day that my dad really liked, called Robotech, and I loved that too. Well, there was a Game Boy Advanced Robotech game. It was a lot of fun. You were like a spaceship that flew around and shot aliens, and it was a blast. And so Michael and I, my brother, we would just hang out all the time, like swapping back and forth the game with each other. And I mean, at the time, we were only allowed to play for like, I don't know, an hour a day or something. But we would, I mean, we really enjoyed it. And so Michael and I really bonded over playing it. And I mean, we would both take turns, and it was honestly, it was a blast. I look back on the memories very fondly. Uh, so that was my first experience with my own games. I mean, I had gone over to friends' houses and played other things before. And then shortly thereafter, got into middle school, and my friends played Halo, and I went over and would play with him. And again, like I said last time, he greatly enjoyed just murdering me in multiplayer Halo, just the two of us playing. And I, again, don't have a video game console and don't know how to play. So he would just shoot me over and over again. So that was a lot of fun for
So
him.
that was a lot of fun.
You like his pub stomping 1v1ing you?
Yes, all
Yeah.
the time.
That's funny.
But away from video games, as a kid, we played the Pokemon card game, the trading card game. And I mean, at the time, we didn't really play it when I was in elementary school. We just collected them because they were awesome. And then in middle school, a new card game came out called Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm sure none of you have ever heard of it before.
Never.
Well, I got very into that, and my dad wanted to do stuff with us because Michael and I both got into it. And so we convinced him to play Yu-Gi-Oh! With us. And that went on. I was in 7th or 8th grade, one of the two. And my dad and I played Yu-Gi-Oh! Up until my last year of high school.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, we went to tournaments. We at one point we ran our own tournament, and we had like an agreement with a comic book shop in town that we would come in every Saturday, set up tables in the back, and we had little portable glass cases that we had cards laid in to sell. And yeah, so it was really cool. And honestly, one of the biggest things I think I learned from that experience was how to uh, I learned a lot about sales and a lot about running a business, because my dad has most of my life, like since I was, I don't know, 6 or 7, something like that, has had his own uh, business repairing roofs. So I learned a lot from him about running your own business through playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Well, eventually that mutated into I played Magic, and I've played a bunch of other trading card games in between as well. And then eventually, to get to the rebellion part, when I left home finally for college, I was like, no, I'm going to play video games however I want. And that's how WoW happened.
He knew all those years back. He knew, and he was
So,
trying to protect you.
all the card games and the Game Boy Advance was just a gateway into WoW, is what you're telling us.
Yes. Oh, one last quick story. When I left for college was when the original Wii came out. And after I left for college, they bought a Wii for Michael and Marta to have. So the first like full console after I left.
So it was
I was
you
not
were
very
you were
happy.
really the problem.
I was.
It also, I didn't know that your dad did that with the magic cards and things with you, but it's
Well, he
reminiscent of
played
how.
Yu-Gi-Oh. He didn't do
Yu-Gi-Oh,
I
Magic.
mean,
yeah.
sorry, with Yu-Gi-Oh. That's what I meant. But I know your dad also plays D&D with Michael sometimes now.
Yeah.
I would
is
love
awesome.
to see
Yeah.
that.
We need to
Honestly,
get all our parents in a D&D game.
that'd
On
be cool.
Twitch.
That would be cool.
That's content right there. Same thing at your house? Really? As soon as you left, they got a game console? Yeah, that's how it works sometimes.
Oh, I forgot to mention one of the things that I just happened to remember during David's story is that my dad also we had a computer, and you know how like the internet basically came out for us when we were like in 1995 or whenever
Yeah.
it happened. And so we had this public access. Well, before that, we had just this CD called Galaxy of Games that had a bunch of just independently created, really simple games on it. But one in particular was called Exile, and it was like a party building RPG game that was so ahead of its time, and I really loved it a lot. And I played that all the time. But aside from that, you also used to be able to buy cereal boxes that had CD-ROMs in them that had games.
Oh,
And
yes.
so I had Carmen Sandiego from a cereal box, the
Yep.
Oregon Trail, the Amazon Trail, some sort of like three-dimensional Pac-Man game. Yeah, those were fun, but especially the Amazon Trail and the Oregon Trail. I loved those so much.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
Oh, I forgot to mention this. Over summer breaks, my mom was very big, and I'm very grateful that she was, but very big into over the summer we would continue basically doing school so that we would not forget things. Well, one of the big ways she got us to do it was she found all these educational video games that that was like the one video game we could play. And so we'd be playing
Jumpstart
like
for
a
kids.
math video game on the computer for hours.
Mm.
Did you guys play that math game, the math video game where like you're a archaeologist or like a
Yes.
yeah,
And the
yeah.
That's
snow?
exactly the one I
What was it
played.
called? But like
Is it?
I have
is it the
no
one that was, like,
idea.
Christmas and snow themed?
no, you were like
Uh-uh.
you're like Indiana Jones, but you're a kid and you go through these like temples of math.
Yes.
Yeah,
What?
it was
It
ridiculous.
was like set
Math
in,
Circus,
like
maybe.
in South America in like
Yeah.
Aztec
That's awesome.
stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
I remember there was so in school, in public school, we had a computer class, and there was every year in this computer class they'd have a different jumpstart game, like the educational jumpstart games. But my favorite one, and I wish I've tried to like find it for a DOS emulator online because I just am so fascinated by this game. It was like second or third grade, and the theme of it, after all the like, here you're a bunny on a farm with all these other years, it was all themed after Halloween, and the idea was all your classmates had been stolen by a witch for indiscernible purposes, and you had to go around being led by a talking bat to go through like scary stuff as a second or third grader. And I was like, this is amazing. I love this game.
Yeah. Real quick
Yeah,
before
Abby said she did like a Timon and Pumbaa typing game. I had like
Yeah.
it was like some kind of sci-fi alien game thing that I played that was a typing that was to teach you typing.
Mm.
Zarian says my parents tried to stop me playing games. It did not work. I got a PC and it was over. Wow, took me. After that, it's been game after game after game.
Yeah, see, that's what happened when I was
how's it going,
in
Constantia?
college, and I got to make my own decisions. I chose WoW, and it was a bad choice.
Freddy Fish. I've not heard of Freddy Fish.
I think that was one of the Jumpstart guys.
It might have been. The Timon and Pumbaa thing reminded me of my mom always told me that she learned to type playing a Mario typing game where he would like jump to
awesome.
He would jump to different letters and then she would have to type the letters.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish I had learned on that game. That seems awesome.
But
I
kind of
remember one where I was playing dominoes with Mario. That's all I
around
remember.
the same thing that you were saying, Morgan. Those like early Oregon Trail type games
Mhm.
at school was a really big part of getting me started, as well as there was this game that was really early 90s, around when the internet was like, climbing in popularity. And we had it on our family computer when I lived in Mississippi when I was so little, and it was called Gizmos and Gadgets. And I don't know how
told
many
me about this.
I don't know how many people have heard of this. But it was this game where you could build contraptions, like Rube Goldberg machines, out of like different gears and stuff like that, as well as like animals. Like you could have like an alligator that would like bite a cord that would drop something, and then you could make these like different machines and stuff. And it was so good. I wish I could. I also want to find some sort of like download file for Gizmos and Gadgets
I'm
and
looking
play
at
it
the
again.
screenshots for it. That's cool.
What is this link, Orpheus? Oh, Freddy Fish. But yeah, if you wanna,
Oh, Reader Rabbit. Yep, I know that one.
I've not heard of that one either. But
That's
Dyer, do you want to go into your, or continue into your story, or?
I mean, I mostly just covered the early stuff anyway, which I think is the most pertinent to this discussion. Other than that, it's just been sort of on and off with video games for me over time. But no, I think I pretty much covered.
Okay.
If I remember anything, I'll bring it up.
Recommend not downloading past games from your childhood. Yeah, they probably do
Keep them
not.
in the
They
nostalgia
probably
vault.
don't live up to the hype of when we were kids, but
Well,
so
and the picture of what they looked like in my head, I would
Mhm.
probably pull it up now and be like, I can't even tell what's happening.
yeah.
Do you,
How did
do you
I
ever
how
have
did I
this
read
feeling-
this?
You ever have this thing when you go back and you've played like, or do you remember the feeling of like playing something on the N64 and thinking, "Wow, these graphics look like real life."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's like well, I'll just get into like my stuff. So same thing, kind of started at like school playing at home playing Gizmos and Gadgets, some educational stuff, and then at school playing Oregon Trail. And then my grandmother had one of my grandmothers had a Super Nintendo that she bought for all the kids, all the grandkids. And so we would play, I had Super Mario, or Mario Brothers, whatever was on the Super Nintendo.
Mhm.
And then we had this game, it was like a Goof Troop game, like a Goofy game. And it was like a Zelda-esque game, where you would just go around this island and like solve puzzles and defeat enemies as Goofy and his son. And then my other grandmother had a Nintendo 64 when it came out, and she actually has arthritis in her hands.
You got the
And-
coolest grandmas.
Yeah. And she the doctor told her that actually playing video games would help her arthritis
Mhm.
to keep her hands active. And so her favorite game was Donkey Kong, and so she would sit and play Donkey Kong 64 to like help with her hands.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then she bought a bunch of other games for the grandkids as well. And then we used to play on this like terrible old tube TV.
Yeah.
Like so bad, but
Mhm.
she had
Touch it and you feel the static.
exactly. Get
I
too
can feel
close.
it right now.
Get
thinking
too
about
close and your
I
hair
know.
starts standing up. But yeah, so she played Donkey Kong a lot, and then she had Zelda Ocarina, and so I would go over there and I would play Zelda, and I was so young though that like I didn't understand that Zelda had like a full storyline,
Mhm.
and so I would just like hang out in different areas and like cut down plants and find rupees and like go in and smash pots and find more money and stuff like that. And then I would like run around the main area and just talk to people and see what I could jump off of and what I could, what I could do and all
Yeah.
that kind of thing. But yeah,
You know,
so
this says a lot about like the capacity as children to to experience agency in like an environment where you won't actually get hurt, but you can sort of do whatever you would want to do and still enjoy yourself, even though you're not really progressing. Sort of like in childhood, you don't really have these ideas as an adult of I need to achieve this and this and this to survive and live and do the things that I want to do. You're just a kid with no responsibilities for the most part, and you get to enjoy the agency of doing whatever you want to at that point. It's interesting that that's sort of reflected in what you were doing in that game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. You just kind of learn. Go ahead, David.
I was just going to say my brother eventually got to borrow whatever the console was that had Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time on it from a friend for a few days and played both of them. And I watched him play them, and they were really cool. But it was kind of the same thing. I didn't really understand what in the world was happening.
Yeah.
It was just he was a little dude with a sword, and he got to run around and cut stuff. So I thought it was cool.
Yeah. Somebody said oh, he was asking about you finishing Odyssey. I got you. And then you already responded. But yeah, so that's kind of how I started in gaming, but then it was just a casual thing for me. And then eventually my grandmother that had the Super Nintendo for my birthday one year bought me a GameCube, and it came with, or she bought like one of the Batman games that came out first on GameCube. And then
I didn't know there even was a Batman game for GameCube.
Yeah, I still have it. And then like Crazy Taxi, I think.
I love Crazy Taxi.
And so I played Crazy Taxi and that Batman game like crazy on that GameCube. And but I was just kind of like whenever I had time. I didn't really do it a lot. I didn't play games just all the time. And you know, my family played board games a lot all together, which is really cool. But it was kind of like whenever I had time, I'm gonna go play my GameCube for like an hour or so. Super Mario Sunshine came out, and that was one of the first games on the GameCube or any system that I like actually realized I needed to progress through the story, and like I really wanted to finish the story. And so, and like all the levels and stuff like that. And Super Mario Sunshine looks so good too for its time.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I actually played that quite a bit. Like when I had time, I was like, I need to beat these levels on Super Mario Sunshine. The Batman game for Nintendo 8-bit. Yeah.
Those 8-bit games were so difficult compared to a lot of modern games.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
you remember some of those Star Wars games that were so hard, but it was so rewarding as well. Like, there's a sort of catharsis that you get after beating something that was super difficult to achieve, that you know that a lot of other people are going to quit just because they can't go through it. I saw something about the design of Dark Souls and how it's intentionally made that way so that you can thrive on the catharsis of winning. And I thought it was really fascinating. And it reminded me of a lot of 8-bit games that I've played.
Yeah, there's games like that kind of separate the hardcore from the casual gamer. Like I tried to play Bloodborne one time, and I got so frustrated. Like, because that was the first of that kind of game that I'd ever tried to play. And
it can be really jarring if it's the first time that you're doing that, for sure.
Yeah. No save function. Yeah. On the 8-bits. Yeah, that's crazy.
And sometimes their version of a save function was, now that you've beaten this level, here's a code that you can enter for later, because we're not actually saving your progress. Just enter this code and you'll be able to switch to this level when you start.
That's so weird.
Some games.
God about that.
Yeah.
That's so weird. So yeah, that's kind of my origin into gaming. And then after the GameCube, you know, I've had that since I was probably 11 or something like that. And then I finally bought myself a PlayStation 3. That was like after the first time I went to college and then took a break for like a year and a half. It was in the middle of that. I was working, but it was like a huge deal for me to buy this game console. And again, I think I talked about this last time, but it came with The Last of Us, one of the greatest story games I've ever played. And then I eventually got Destiny, and that's when I got Destiny, and I've told the story last time too, but when I met Adnoth and then we started playing together, it was the first time that I ever was like invested in a game so much that I wanted to play it all the time and like complete everything that it had to offer and things like that. And then the rest is kind of history.
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys think that there's like a out of all of your favorite games, out of all of the years that you like had like peak games, is there something in like a common denominator with each of those games that you think has always been there, something you've consistently enjoyed from the time you began video gaming until now?
Story for me.
Yeah, I think just how it takes you. Again, it's about escapism. You can really like immerse yourself in the story of Link going to save Zelda, or you can really immerse yourself in like Super Mario Sunshine. For me, was one of my first immersions. Was like, I need to get all these, I think they're stars in that one, or no, they're sunshine. They're like sunshine emblem things. And then I need to go save Peach, and then
or like in Crazy Taxi, the real immersion of being this taxi driver that's nuts and runs into everything.
Yeah. That's a good one. That was a good just like mess around game.
I think like all of us would agree on story there, but there are different kinds of immersion in a game. Like that's narrative immersion. There's like systemic immersion is when you're just feeling the flow of like the gameplay mechanics in itself. But I think narrative immersion seems to be what all three of us would agree on, is like, here's the story. I really want to figure out how it ends and see what's happening.
Yeah,
which is interesting because like essentially a game in that way serves the same purpose as like if I'm watching a movie or reading a book, I'm experiencing a story. But in this one, I have the freedom to impact the story in a variety of ways. Even if this story ends the exact same way every time, which has been common for a lot of video games, except for the past several years, there's been a lot of change to that. Even in that situation, I'm still in control of how effectively that happens, which is kind of one of the ways I think it sets itself apart from a written concrete story on page or on a screen being presented to you. But I've always sort of viewed it in the same way as like, should I be reading more books or this? At various points in my life, I've asked myself that. And then I thought, what am I doing instead? And it usually was playing a video game of some sort. And eventually I sort of realized, no, I'm doing the same thing, really. Like I'm experiencing the same thing and I'm getting the same kind of glee at the end of this experience that I would have otherwise, maybe even more so in some cases.
Yep. Yeah, I think my first experience with systemic immersion was actually in WoW. Not because the gameplay of WoW was so gripping, but it was one of my requirements for my ideal game from last time was I could fly around on a dragon. I don't know how much time I literally, instead of using the fast travel or the like griffin things to go between places, I would just hop on my dragon and fly around places, even though it took like 6 times longer, but I could fly around. And
the thing is, with that game, there are some really beautiful places to fly around to. In particular, I remember
it's called a taxi, apparently,
in Outlands, like with all the floating islands and the beautiful just like plains of grass and Nagrand. But aside from that, this is sort of a mix, and I won't spend long on here because I know that you haven't played this monk, but there's this place called the Boreal Forest or something like that, or the Howling Fjord. I don't remember. It's in the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. No, it's called Grizzly Hills, and it's like this pine forest. But in part, if you have the music turned on, there's this beautiful soundtrack playing in the background, and it's just like the most beautiful place I think that WoW has ever had for my personal preferences. And it's an awesome place. And I remember flying around it or walking around on the floor of that. Just if I needed to relax and escape and not do anything, I would just like have my character run through there.
Wrath of the Lich King was my
Yeah.
favorite.
Oh, it was so good.
Yeah, I don't know anything about what y'all are talking about, but
But
it sounds
the
cool.
next systemic immersion I had was definitely Destiny.
Yeah,
I mean, that was the reason I got into it, was just like, man, this just feels good.
yeah.
And
Well-
I remember on the demo that I played first, I played through it and was like, okay, this is really cool. I'm enjoying this. It feels good. And then I realized, I even remember, I can picture this moment of me sitting in my apartment, and I'm looking at the TV and I realized that as I started to pull the trigger on the controller to pull the trigger on the gun, that the hammer
On the
would
gun, yeah.
slightly, on the gun would slightly pull back in the chamber. It was a hand cannon. The chamber, or like a pistol, and the
Yeah.
chamber would start to turn.
The revolver.
Not do it. Yeah, the revolver.
Oh, that's awesome.
It would start to turn, but not go all the way. And if you let go, it would both go back. And so the animation was like I was really shooting a gun. And it was, when I realized that, I was just in.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that it did that.
I had a similar discovery. I just was like messing around on it one day, and I was like aiming down sights and realized that every time it was pressure sensitive.
Yeah.
When you're pulling the trigger on the gun, I was like, oh, this is good.
Yeah.
Maelstrom was saying he had immersion in the Ezio storyline for Assassin's Creed.
Yes.
And Constancio as well. That's why I love Assassin's Creed. Lets me become immersed into a period I couldn't. Lets me become immersed into a period I couldn't live through, but love to learn about.
I also played Force Unleashed Orpheus on the Wii, which is a weird place to have played it, but I loved it.
I can appreciate the idea of like learning more about a period of time or history based on sort of, generating that interest by playing a video game. I think is, on one hand, the capacity that we can do that at all is kind of neat, because, there might be otherwise no reason for you to have an interest or research into anything, but then you experience it. Say, like, for instance, I can imagine somebody never really having an interest in like Westerns or something, but playing Red Dead 2 and then being like, wow, this is really cool. And then not only are you sort of experiencing this in a world that in a lot of ways sort of reminds you about things that you haven't experienced in your own lifetime, but this is the reality of lives, but you have more of an appreciation for it after that point, and you can reference that as like your own life experience that you've experienced outside of yourself, but sort of be like, wow, I can recall this situation. And I think that in that way, games can make you a more sensitive person in a positive way to other people's, the way that other people experience things. And as an example of that, as a better example, the game Hellblade is all about trying to give the player a sense of what it's like to go through a particular mental disorder. And I'm trying not to spoil too much of this, but the entire basis of this game is to help you experience what it's like to have a very serious mental disorder. But you're also playing this just as an adventure game. And there are certain things that happen in this game that it tells you, like, here's some conditions that you have to meet to win this. But in some ways, it's not entirely truthful with you, because it's, and in that way, it's this immersive experience that sort of tells you that, yeah, you live in this constant fear of certain things happening, but the reality is the game actually never has those things occur. But you live in dread, and you're playing this game in the dread that these things are going to happen. And it's really fascinating. This is called Hellblade.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about Hellblade and how, I mean, it won quite a few. It won quite a few awards. Thought you weren't going to spoil it.
It's the one where you're the like native looking chick, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I do really want to play through that, actually, because I've heard such good things about it. But to your point, I mean, with the whole like being in a different time period, or even if those things aren't represented in the most accurate way, it kind of makes you have an appreciation, like you were saying, but also maybe wanting to learn more about that certain time period, or like learn more about history, things like that. Like with the Red Dead Redemption, you get into like the old West stuff, and then you want to go watch like other Western films or something like that. Assassin's Creed games are a really good example, because when I've always been fascinated with like Egyptian history, and then when Origins came out and you could like scale the pyramids,
Yeah,
I was like so excited.
that is a beautiful game.
It is a beautiful game. But yeah, and then with Hellblade and stuff like that, there can be a really good opportunity for game developers to do something more than just entertain you. It can be a very good educational tool through video games, and you can help a lot of people, I think.
Yeah. And it's not so much like the games we were talking about earlier, like here's a intentionally educational game for writing, arithmetic sort of thing, but it's more of you're learning social skills through gaming, even in capacities where you're playing completely alone in a one-player game. It can still help you in that way. I actually think Animal Crossing is a really good example of that, for people sort of learning social value and interactions with people, like especially younger people that play these games. Like I remember playing on the GameCube, the first Animal Crossing game, and just you can interact with people, and you sort of have this sense of community that people remember the things that you've done for them over time. People eventually move away, and you sort of learn like, wow, I've had this character in my village for a long time, and now they're just gone.
Yeah, it teaches you about social currency.
Mm-hmm.
WoW was an odd kind of immersion. Got hooked by the game, but I stayed for the social aspects of it. Also started making headcanon stories for my characters in the game. I have full books on my own characters. Yeah, that's really cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's another thing is they can.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say you can branch out a lot. Like people have fan fiction and stuff like that about all kinds of characters in different games. It creates other types of media. When you create a game that is so immersive or such a good story, then people want to add to it, or make spin-offs, or just have more of that game, so they make their own creations, and that can be really great outlet as well.
Oh wow, 3 in a row. That's cool.
Yeah, username is based on your first WoW character. Wow.
I played an orc named Direfist, and I had an entire story in my head of like what he. I mean, I was on an RP server anyway, but yeah. Rock Direfist.
Reminds me that I still need to send more lore to your wife about D&D question. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, something else you were talking about with Hellblade reminded me of just how it can also help with people with like mental health issues.
Yes.
And I know you're pretty passionate about that, especially with like D&D and things like that.
Yeah, I have a lot of interest in how gaming in a variety of ways can be used to positively affect people with certain mental health struggles, and also make other people more sensitive to others that go through those sorts of things. I mean, at its core, I think it's always great to assume that just because I have or have not experienced something doesn't mean that somebody else has or hasn't. And to be able to experience something in a life that you were not directly tied to, but you're in the control of, there's a lot of freedom there for somebody who's, the game developer or the DM or whatever it is, to give you a glimpse into what it's like to experience those problems or be around somebody who is. And aside from that, even just like dementia as an example of something that a lot of older people are having a lot of issues with and always have. One of the things they found is even something as simple as using a lot of fine motor hand movements while playing video games has been very helpful in people who have dementia. So that's something that, as simple as like, hey, here, play Super Mario Brothers, it can be extremely helpful to those people.
Yeah, and that's a fascinating
Kind of
subject all on its own.
Kind of a side comment, but it's connected to this and to the current events we started with. But did you see? I mean, it's probably like a month ago now when this quarantine thing was first really taking off. I saw a picture on social media somewhere. I don't remember if it was Facebook or Twitter or something else, but that had two web news articles from the World Health Organization. Both of them were from WHO. One was from like September of last year or something, talking about the pandemic of video games in the world and how it was destroying. And right next to it was a current one that was saying from them that the World Health Organization was recommending that people play video games to keep themselves sane
Mentally
while being
stable,
stuck
yes.
at home. Yes. I was like,
well, not
flip flop much?
not so long ago, on that same vein, they like categorized video game addiction as like a pretty serious problem.
Yeah.
And like people that,
which it can be, but
sure,
people,
but the criteria they were citing was, it fit basically anybody that streams on Twitch,
right?
Anybody,
like anyone who plays video games with any kind of regularity,
regularity at all.
It's like drinking. You
Yeah,
need a 12-step
it was
program.
like a mental health issue or like a chemical imbalance in your brain, which anyway.
That's yeah, and you know, there's always going to be something like that. People used to say that if you spent more than like an hour reading a book or even that long, that there was something wrong with you. Like that was a thing like 100 years ago, where people were like, this is a terrible thing to be doing because you're sitting in one place and it's bad for your eyes and then it's going to ruin your brain. And now people say that that's like one of the most healthy things you can do. It's always going to be that way.
You're considered highly intelligent if you're reading several books. Right. Yeah. Be bad if you were drinking and gaming at the same time. Yeah. Playing a drinking game. Yeah. Reading's going to ruin your brain. You heard it here, folks.
Hot take. Yeah. Well, what's hilarious is when I was a kid, that was anytime we were in trouble or grounded or anything, we'd get everything taken away. The one thing we were allowed to do for enjoyment still was read.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, is...
So now you associate it as a punishment.
We've talked about, this is what was the thing that really drew me into games other than not being able to play them? Well, I mean, it's story games are what really draws me in. I wonder where that came from.
Oh, yeah, good point.
Reading, that was what I did. That was how I immersed myself in worlds, and really good story video games most of the time still aren't up to par with really good books, but they're more interactive. It's a book I can be a part of.
Yep. Yeah, you don't have to like have paragraphs and paragraphs of description when you have literally a 2-second window of like, wow, I see everything that I could have had described in that time too.
Yeah. So
I think that's one of those things that also makes some people sort of more hesitant, because I know that there were times in my life where I felt no need to read books, and I don't think that like, you know, one thing is better or not. I think the good balance is great, because I love reading as well, but I could see why I felt that way at times in my life, where I was like, why would I read books when I can just sort of experience this in the same way? And within seconds I can get all those paragraphs, an entire chapter really.
Yeah. And for people that do like story and maybe don't like to read books, I mean, I'm not like a huge reader. I've read books, but I'm not like, I don't do it for enjoyment. Does that make sense? Like there's been very few books that I've read for enjoyment purposes.
I have to really enjoy it if I want to finish it.
Yeah.
I understand that.
And I have done it, but it's not something that I seek out But to your point, like when you're playing a video game, it can be just as immersive, and you don't have to wait for certain things to be described to you. It's just there, and you're playing, and you read the dialogue of these characters, and it is kind of like a book, but it's with you, and it's interactive, which is nice. Reading is more fulfilling than listening to an audiobook. Okay, yeah. I also love audiobooks, though.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
part of the reason, like what Orpheus is saying, the thing about reading a book lets you imagine things the way you want to imagine them, create this own world. I feel like that's part of the reason that I enjoy video games, and that's my creative outlet, is because it's very attached to that same part of my brain, that same imagination that I was constantly using. I mean, still do. I read very regularly still. I love reading, but with my imagination and how quickly that's what pulls me into games, is it really tickling my imagination? Is it something that's really given me something to think about here?
It's also like there's a lot of I think I would have thought if it hadn't been for the fact that I've been writing a book for so long, I would feel different. But in some ways, you could arguably say that it takes a lot more time and effort in a variety of ways to make all of this stuff come together for a video game, and therefore by extension, your ability to appreciate something by understanding how much work went into it. I think it's going to have an effect on how much you appreciate it if you take just a little time to think about it. Um, Although I say that knowing how much work I put into what I write and like how long it's taken me to even get to this point. But so conflicted on that one.
That's why some books don't do well when made into movies. Yeah, that's a good point. Like when people are reading something separately without any kind of visualization provided along with it, where you have to kind of create the world how you would think it would look yourself, and then somebody or a group of people come together and they say, putting their ideas together, saying this is what it would look like, or this is how these people would look, or how they would sound, or how they would act. This happened with the Harry Potter books. When they got turned into movies, some people really hated them because it's not what they imagined. So it's interesting when you try to take a different medium, one medium, and turn it into a different medium, and how it can like turn fans against that certain thing.
Yeah, along that
That's a
line,
good example.
I've had quite a few books that I've read for years that then when were made into a movie, or even when I've later gone back and because I didn't have time to reread it, I got the audiobook version and just listened to it, where they have even something as simple as the pronunciation of one of the characters' names
Yeah.
in an audiobook, the way they pronounce it. I'm like, what? Who are they talking about? That's not the person's name. And then I go back and I pull out the book and I look at it. I'm like, no, they're pronouncing it right. I just, my entire time since I've read this book 15 years ago, read it wrong. And that was the name that was stuck in my head. Or in a movie, I mean, this character looks so much different than I had them pictured in my head. And
Yeah.
I don't like it. And
So
it doesn't turn me. I'm not one of the people that like rages, this
Right.
looks different than my character in my head, so therefore you're bad and I'm not going to watch this movie. But it's always a little shocking when it happens.
Yeah, it can happen the opposite way too. Is visual medium does what it does well enough, then the book legitimately overwatches my original thought of the process. So like what Kevin's saying in chat, cannot think of Aragorn as anyone but Viggo Mortensen. Like when you think of that character, you picture Viggo Mortensen.
Well, he did it so well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious because I read the books before I saw the movies, and yet still it was so defining that that's who I picture now.
What you just said, Adnath, reminded me of how there's a book series that I've read the entirety except for the last two books. That's I think like 40 plus books in the series so far, because it's related to D&D. It's called the Legend of Drizzt, and it's had a lot of like it's a long series with it's split into 3 parts each. Over it started in like before I was born, basically, and it's still going. And every time I listen to an audiobook from it, because that's how I've consumed some of it, every time there's a different speaker, and they always pronounce things completely differently, all these names completely differently, and I have to like check sometimes, because there's this one character, for instance, named Katie Bree, but sometimes in these is called Catabri or Catibri or all these things, and I've noticed that they don't really have a set standard, so there's no way for me to know what it's supposed to be pronounced as.
That's kind of messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like with going back to the Harry Potter books. My mom used to always pronounce Hermione Hermione. Hermione. And so like when the movies came out and we went and saw the movies, she was like, "Oh, Hermione. Okay." And so wait, what?
Wait, did I miss something? I didn't see Abby say anything.
I think he was trying to tag you.
No, I was no. I was saying you called her out on that one, but
Called who out on what?
You called her out.
No, he said his mom.
Oh, I thought you said
about?
Never mind, I thought you said Abby.
What is Sazed?
He's from the Mistborn book series.
Okay. Oh, is he just referencing somebody that?
Okay, so that's how you said it. The way the audiobooks say it is Sazed.
Sazed. Okay.
And so that was another one that shocked us. That's why he's bringing it up.
Well, that was a good example then, because I pronounced it wrong.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in. I know at whatever point you want to get into it, but I'm really fascinated by what I expect your answers to be to that other part of this question that we started with. With the, like, what could potentially make you permanently give up video games in some way. I'm very fascinated to hear your answers on that one.
I mean, we can just jump into it.
I guess we can go ahead and get into that.
Yeah, the thing that would make me quit is really just life. Like, I mean, I've been over the past couple of years, I've been in Indiana now for almost 2 years. Probably the most I ever played was 3 years ago when Monk and I lived together, just because we played all the time together. Now I would say in the last 2 years it has declined severely, for good reason. It's because I've been so busy with school and teaching, and then my other responsibilities, to the point where in the last like 3 months probably, I've been legitimately thinking, okay, well now I play Destiny on my computer, I play Division on my computer, that kind of stuff, that was thinking, should I sell my PlayStation and get a little bit of money from it, because I'm not even using it really up until Final Fantasy VII came out. No, I'm glad I didn't.
And then The Last of Us 2 is going to be PS4 exclusive.
2, right? And that was the one that I was really looking forward to. And like, I could keep it. But it wasn't just because of that. I mean, I legitimately didn't play. I mean, I played like, I don't know what, Monk, like 3 hours every other week or something was when you would finally be able to wear me down and get me on to play Destiny.
Pretty much.
And
still happens that way.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it was to the point where I'm like, I really don't play that much because I've got so many other things to do. And I didn't feel like I was missing out either. I just had other things to do and I enjoyed them as well. And so, I mean, I would say, would there be anything that would make me quit? Yes. It wouldn't be a permanent quit. It wouldn't be like I'm never going to play video games again. But just life on the outside would make me dial it back so much that, I mean, I would probably play occasionally with friends, and then for like game releases like the Final Fantasy VII remake, I mean, something like that that's really attractive to me, or The Last of Us 2, it would come out, I'd go get that one game
Mm.
and then play it to completion over a few months' time, and that would be about it. But I would say I'm probably a whole lot closer to that point now than I ever realized was possible. Because again, part of my rebellion with video games, I was I remember looking at other people that I knew that played video games, like my uncle played video games. Uh, when they grew up and had kids and stuff, stopped playing. I mean, they would still have a console, but it just like rotted under their TV. And I remember being as a kid that didn't have a video game console being like, oh, that's so wrong that they're
Yeah.
just letting it rot there and they don't play that thing. And I know they want to, and they need to stop being a baby and let their other responsibilities get in the way. And so, because I was looking at it from the
The mind
mindset
of a kid.
they were being told by life they couldn't play video games.
Yeah.
Which now that I'm experienced, so I was always the person that's never going to happen. I'm always going to play.
Yeah.
And I mean, I believe that, like I said, I think I will always come back to video games. I won't like quit, but it's not life telling me I can't play. It's me realizing I don't really have the same desire I did before, and I have a lot of other stuff to do, and I'd rather be doing it. And so it's very natural. It's just part of, I guess, my evolution as a person.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How about yourself, Dyer?
Okay. That actually sounds remarkably like what I was going to say, really. It's that as I've had more responsibilities in life, for one, or I felt like I was achieving more, I didn't feel the same need to go to video games. Like when I was trying to think of how I would answer this question, I had to think about, well, why do I play them in the first place? And we've discussed a lot how it's been like a form of escapism in one way or another. Um, so I think my best, aside from basically everything you said, which I 100% agree with, I think that the thing that would make me like potentially quit permanently asterisk until I need to go back would be if I don't feel like I need them anymore. Because I know that at various points in my life, I have definitively felt like I absolutely needed to be playing a game in some way or another. Like I feel like there are times in my life where it essentially saved me from some alternative happenings where I was either like really depressed and I had nowhere else to turn at certain times in like sort of critical moments where the thing that I went to sort of distract myself from that for a period of time until I could get better help, right? Was that okay, I'm going to sort of just play games for now and then sort of feel a little better. And I think part of that is, you know, with most games, you have some achievable goal that's presented to you. And it's like, there it is. I can do this thing right now. No matter what sort of control I have lost in my life or what sort of place I'm at in life where I feel like I don't have any objective or I'm unclear on what my objective is, I can play a game which
Or the objective
presents
seems
me
impossible.
right, and I can play a game where there is the objective. I can go towards this. I can achieve this. And I think that just being somebody that grew up with with a lot of depression through the years, and what I've determined it later in life about it is that the thing that always keeps me from being nearly as depressed as I could be is when I have some sense that I'm achieving something in life. And I think video games have sort of been a good distraction at various points to sort of make me feel like, wow, I'm here, I can achieve something. On the flip side, of course, that can be obviously like anything else abused in the way that I perceive it as like, oh, you know, I could just distract myself ceaselessly, indefinitely with these things and not achieve anything. But I like to think that I don't treat them that way anymore, and because you guys know I'm like hardly ever on them unless you guys are playing most of the time anyway now. Um, but I think that would be my answer is like if I felt like I didn't really need them anymore. So in a way, it's like yeah, it would be great to not have to play them anymore in some capacity. But sometimes I really do just play them just for fun, even when I'm feeling good. So I know that's not entirely it. But yeah, I think that would be my answer. If I felt like I didn't need them anymore, that would probably be the one thing I could think of that could make me quit. So it's more of a, in a way, a positive answer than just like somebody makes me really mad and I'm never playing again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not to agree with the World Health Organization, but there is like a dopamine hit that you get, obviously, with like achieving things in video games that maybe one might seek out if they were in a spot where they needed that. Maelstrom said I'm the total opposite. I kept playing into my adult life, but I don't have many responsibilities, no family of my own or a partner. I'm full introvert and spend time on my own, so I don't do the adulting, I guess. Yeah. So like everybody's gonna have a different answer to this. Really, most of our answers are gonna be pretty similar, actually. Now that I hear both of yours. But yeah, for me, it would be real life, not necessarily getting in the way, but if something were to happen as far as like career, that would probably make me spend way less time playing video games. Starting a family would take away a lot of that time because I have responsibilities that I would need to attend to. But on the flip side of that, having kids, I do want to like introduce them to the video gaming world because it meant so much to me when I was a kid to go over to my grandmother's house and like play Donkey Kong with her, or like Mario, or play Super Nintendo with my other grandmother, or whatever like that. And because it's such a big part of my life, and like the stream and content creation and video games are such a big part of what I do and what makes me happy, it's something that I would want to share with my kids in the future. So I don't know that I would ever necessarily quit completely. I think I would slow down. But there's always going to be things coming out to look forward to in this kind of in this medium. Like David was saying, The Last of Us is coming out. I've thought the same exact thoughts about my PlayStation. I'm like, I don't use this anymore. I have a good enough PC where I can just play basically any other game I want. And then I think about it and I'm like, I'm never going to sell my PlayStation because then I can't play The Last of Us. So like there's certain games that I'm always going to be holding out for.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think a good question to follow this question up and to kind of end it would be, if something like that were to happen, what would bring you back? And I think the answer for me would be just that next big thing. Like there's always going to be that next. This is one of the biggest industries in the
FOMO, fear of missing out.
Well, I mean, it's just one of the biggest industries in the world. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry that has so many branches to it, and there are so many things coming out every year and the technology keeps getting better as well. Microsoft, Sony are coming out with new consoles. PC gaming is getting better every year, if not every like 6 months. Something is coming out. And then developers have to keep up with that technology by making games even more graphically intensive and more beautiful. And so bringing it back in, if you were to quit, for me it would be something like The Last of Us 2 comes out and I'm right back in it, or Destiny gets an overhaul and a new expansion, or even a new Destiny game, I'm coming back. Like things like that. So what about you guys?
Baldur's Gate 3. That's all I can say about it. No, I completely agree. I think that's why I don't really see a world in which I don't ever play video games again, is because there are very specific things that I have dreamed about from childhood, saying, wow, I wish this was a game. And then sometimes things that are really close to those ideas come out. And it's like, wow, this is what I've been waiting for my entire life. And sometimes I play them and they're really disappointing. And sometimes I play them for like a few hours and it's like, oh, this is awesome. And then they're disappointing. And sometimes it's like, wow, this is what really pretty much what I wanted.
Yeah.
But I think it's basically the same. It sounds like we have a lot of the same answers. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it'd be very similar to what you guys are saying. I mean, one, I want to teach my kids to play video games in a different way than my parents taught me. Uh, so, I mean, more responsible education kind of method rather than it's bad, so watch out. Uh, and I mean, I look forward to playing games like Mario Kart or Wii Tennis, or I mean, whatever the versions of those are when my kids are old enough to play with them and having that common experience. I mean, I look forward to playing card games and board games with my kids. And so, I mean, that would definitely be one of the biggest things that would, quote, bring me back. And then big games that have a real tie to my heart, releasing new versions, that does as well. I mean, and then I bought the Xbox One to play Assassin's Creed Unity. It was like the reason I bought that console. And then I bought my PlayStation to play Destiny. Like, I mean, so two games got me into, and each of them got me into an entire console.
Yeah.
So yeah, getting the next big Destiny release, or the next big Assassin's Creed, or the next Last of Us 3, or whatever comes in the future, I mean, they could definitely bring me back as well. But I think it would be different than in the past. It wouldn't be, it would bring me back to playing video games all the time. It brings me back to playing this game. And then
Mm-hmm.
I would play this game. And when I'm done with it, I would, I mean, not quit, but I mean, dial back again to just casually playing things occasionally, which is honestly pretty much what I do now anyway.
Yeah. You know, I just realized that as you said that, I don't think any of us would accurately say that we play games for the sake of playing games. We generally have like very specific reasons that we want to play different games. I would think.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm wrong about
now
that. Yeah.
I think
Even
now that's true. Yeah. In the past, it was not,
Mhm.
for me at least. But I mean, lots of times I played because I wanted to play video games, and I would be searching out anything to fill that void.
Right.
But yeah, now I mean, I play to play with friends, to play with you guys,
Mm.
or I play because of some great story that I'm really invested in, or because of the nostalgia of like a Pokemon or a Final Fantasy VII, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. I do it to get my my steps in on Animal Crossing. Yeah. So I think that about covers most of the things we were going to cover today. Unless we have any other questions from chat, we'll probably wrap up the talk show portion of this. It's interesting to hear this since I'm so different, play so many games at the moment. Right now, I'm what is that? I'm in
Wrath of the Lich King.
Wrath of the Lich King.
Oh,
Actually,
okay. I gotcha.
it's a raid.
Idea of cutting down is odd to me, but I can understand. Yeah. Again, it's different for everybody. Like, people have their reasons for playing games. People have their reasons for playing specific games. And it can change all the time though. And that's the thing about this, is it's not a life-giving activity. It may help with certain things, but it's not a necessity. And depending on what time in your life you're in, or what stage of your life you're in, it may be less important than a different stage. So it can change all the time. WoW shortening is how you know who played WoW, who doesn't. Yeah. So but yeah, thanks guys for coming on and giving your opinions on this subject.
Yeah.
Again,
thanks for having
is
us again. It was a lot of fun.
Adnoth, Dire Fist. Anything you want to shout out again before we end? we can mention
Have you worked
Adnoth's.
on your D&D campaign at all, Dyer, since last we spoke?
Not since last we spoke. But I should send you the document that I made. I sent it to Monk. It's pretty in depth. Monk took a look at it and had some comments about it. But it's something I'm very proud of, and so I haven't worked on it since then because I just was doing other things, and I have some other things I have to do today. More of those life responsibilities that keep me from feeling the need to to play games.
There you go.
But no, I'll send it to you if I remember to do that later. Speaking of which, I'm very excited to eventually do this on this channel, and if I do it with just if it's just like a one-on-one game or otherwise, I don't know if have you ever played D&D at enough?
Just once last month
Okay.
with Orpheus, and Katie and I both played. Kevin watched it being streamed on to a Facebook group.
Nice.
And it was pretty fun. I'd never played before, and I mean, it was always something that sounded interesting, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's basically one of those things that has like this short little like 2-session learning curve, and then all of a sudden you basically know how to do everything. That's what I feel like the game is.
But yeah, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed doing it. We had like a special, or Orpheus ran a one-off special campaign for his wife that actually ends up we didn't finish, so it's going to be a 2-off.
2-off.
But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a one shot.
Yeah, he was mentioning earlier, my wife is just constantly texting him now, asking questions about the world that this is taking place in, and forcing him to create more information and really think through things.
Yes. So that sort of related to what we were talking about a while ago. It's literally endless immersion capabilities in D&D. Like you can just do whatever you want and create whatever kind of character you want, which is really one of the appeals of the game. And having somebody that can run it and is willing to be like, sure, you can play this exact backstory down to the detail with this person. It's really a fascinating medium.
Yep.
Adnoth, you want to shout anything out real quick? I see you've posted the link to your
yeah, same thing as last time. Just want to shout out my company, Aerotech Solutions. If you are looking to get a better PC for gaming or for content creation or even just for work, it doesn't have to be a desktop dedicated to gaming, but I can spec out a list of, I can discuss with you, find out your specific needs, and spec out a list that'll work perfectly for you, and then build it and ship it to you anywhere in the United States. And then if you have any, especially during this coronavirus, if you're having computer problems that are messing with your workflow, I can remotely support that for you as well. So send in or put the link in the chat, and if you can head over there, and if you need anything, just let me know, and I'll be happy to help how I can.
Sounds like we already have a sponsor for this talk show. And I'm Mvnk, that's Monk on Twitch, so twitch.tv/mvnk, and then follow. If you're seeing this on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot. Also, if you liked the content, make sure you hit the like button, and turn on the notifications if you want to get notified when we post new things just like this talk show. So thanks again for everybody tuning in to Monk's Musings. Thanks for watching, anybody watching on YouTube later on, and we will see you next time.